The situation inside migrant border facilities has been described as, quote, a ticking time bomb. That assessment is not from human rights advocates or Democratic lawmakers. It's from the administration itself, specifically the Inspector General for the Department of Homeland Security. It published these images showing what it calls overcrowding and poor conditions. Mireya Villarreal has the details.
Love, not hate, makes America great.
Across the country Tuesday, hundreds of people turned out for protests demanding migrant detention centers be closed.
We are collectively astounded and horrified at the cruelty that is going on at our border.
The Office of Inspector General released these photos Tuesday, allegedly showing dangerous overcrowding at several Border Patrol facilities. This one from early June apparently shows 71 men being held in a cell with a capacity for 41 women at Border Patrol's Fort Brown Station in Texas. In its new report, the office says overcrowding is so bad, desperate detainees at one facility went so far as to clogging toilets with Mylar blankets and socks in order to be released from their cells during maintenance. Investigators also say they observed overcrowding at facilities where children are being held, and that many are being held longer than legally allowed. At 3 facilities they visited, investigators say children had no access to showers, and at 2 facilities, no access to hot meals. This video of a 12-year-old migrant girl speaking to her immigration attorney about the alleged conditions of the Border Patrol facility in Clint, Texas, is where she was held for 12 days. They gave us little food. Some children did not bathe, the girl said in Spanish. They were mean to us. The Department of Homeland Security acknowledges the findings in this OIG report and calls what's happening here along the southern border an acute and worsening crisis. The House Oversight Committee has called an emergency hearing for next week where they will address the findings of this report. They've asked both DHS and CBP to send their department heads to come and testify next week. Mireya Villarreal, CBS News in McAllen, Texas.
I want to bring in Niall Stanage. He's a White House columnist for The Hill. So, Niall, does the White House believe that the $4.6 billion in aid that's been approved will fix the problems at the facility? Or do you think this is more than just about a little bit of money here?
Well, I mean, the bigger issue is obviously the conditions in those facilities. Will that money in itself fix it? I don't think so. But I think that there is a political need to respond to these images. I mean, it is difficult to look at those images and come to any judgment other than that is disgraceful. That people should be kept in those conditions. It's an appalling thing. Now, where blame should be apportioned, that gets into a political issue. But the sheer emotional and provocative power of those images that you're showing right now needs no addition from me or anyone else. It's an appalling situation for those people.
Yeah, I mean, kids who didn't really get more than bologna sandwiches, adults who have constipation from eating only those bologna sandwiches. We know that also, in addition to this, after the July 4th holiday, the president warned that there will be raids on undocumented immigrants in the U.S. I want to play for you what he had to say on Tuesday.
After July 4th, a lot of people are going to be brought back out. So people that come up may be here for a short while, but they're going to be going back to their countries. They go back home. ICE is going to be apprehending them and bringing them back. And we have a very big system for that. And it's been very effective, and it will be very effective.
So ICE has signaled that they would target these families, and that may lead to more children being separated. What's the value, do you think, that the president sees in having these raids?
I think it's a political value that he sees. He clearly regards his hard line on immigration as having been a key ingredient on him getting elected first time around. He has been very sensitive to criticisms that he has not made progress on his border wall, for example. I think all of this is about giving the impression of strength, the impression of being a hardliner on these issues. Now, of course, Rena, that has sometimes backfired. One of the reasons that these raids were postponed in the first place was because the president had spoken of them in advance, and people felt that he had jeopardized the likely effectiveness of the raids. I'm not talking there about whether the raids are a good or bad thing, but by talking about them in advance, he presumably gave people who would be targeted a heads up to leave wherever they might have been.
Yeah, the element of surprise and showing up at these raids is important for those folks. But, you know, the fact that he's still tweeting about it, he's talking about it, it's just, I don't know, it's fascinating. I also want to ask you about the census, the 2020 census. The president said that the Commerce Department has not dropped its push to add the citizenship question. But, you know, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said it's already been printed without it. So why the contradiction here?
There's a lot of confusion around this issue. There's a lot of confusion around the president's tweet. Obviously, one takes Secretary Ross at his word that this has, in fact, been printed without that question. The reason that that happened was because the Supreme Court ruled against the administration on this issue. But I do think it is connected to what we've just been talking about in one way, Rena, which is that the president, again, wants to pretend that he is not backing down or wants to assert that he is continuing to drive a hard line on this issue. The citizenship question on the census, the proposed question, has been something that he has been quite impassioned about. So he's wanting to signal to his base that he's not backing down, even though the reality would very much appear to be at odds with that.
We're also 2 weeks away, Niall, from hearing former special counsel Robert Mueller testify on Capitol Hill. You know, the president has warned Mueller to just stick to the report. We should also know the president's going to be holding a campaign rally on that same night. He'll be testifying during the day, but he'll hold the rally at night. How critical will Mueller's testimony be in sort of shaping that conversation about impeachment and also for the president's 2020 campaign?
Mueller himself has been pretty circumspect. Mueller has said before that the report is his testimony. He has indicated an unwillingness to go beyond what is already in the report. So you would think on one hand that limits the potential for controversy here, but on the other, the visuals of Robert Mueller testifying, the fact that he might say something that people can interpret in a way that is critical of the president or the administration, things like that could breathe life into impeachment efforts. But I think Democrats would be unwise to put too much hope in Robert Mueller, who is fundamentally a very cautious character and not given to sweeping generalizations. So I think that it will be quite guarded testimony in all likelihood.
Niall Stanage, now grateful you could join us.
Thanks, Rita.